Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thursday, and all of today's guests, including John Shannon, standing by, brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Giants and Cameron Schmidt take on the Prince George Cougars tomorrow at the LEC. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. Grab a White Spot pack for any game, which includes 4 tickets and a $40 White Spot gift card. Packs start as low as $129. This is a good deal, Rick. Head to VancouverGiants.com to grab your tickets for every
great deal
game. Joined now by NHL Analyst John Shannon. I think 2 out of every 3 visits from John, he's at a golf course, which is the case today.
Loves to golf.
If you're at a golf course, I guess you're doing well, John.
Well, September is one of those months that you don't need to get bogged down with training camp if you're not, with the team. Mm-hmm. And it's 27 degrees in Toronto today.
Wow.
And sunny, and I don't know how you can beat it. So you might as well do what I did and get a bit of a sunburn and play golf.
Hey, I saw you tweet about this earlier this week or last week, but NHL expansion, I think for a lot of people, it took a lot of people by surprise. Where are we with NHL expansion? Is Gary actually thinking of going to 34 teams?
Not according to Gary.
Okay.
Gary's the one that actually poured the water over it. There was a few people and qualified guys in the media that said, there's going to be expansion talk at the Board of Governors meeting next week. And as Elliot, I'm sure, told you, and the others that are closer to it than I am will tell you that there's expansion talk at every Board of Governors meeting. And there's always an expansion update. There's always something that the commissioner will say, here's where, we have interest from these teams. Certainly we know there's interest in Atlanta. We know there's interest in Houston. But on Monday here in Toronto, Gary really kind of, poured water on whatever fire there was to say, it's not being contemplated at this point. And I think there's a number of reasons for that at this point. First of all, Atlanta needs a new arena, and there isn't a new arena in Atlanta. There isn't a qualified owner yet in Houston, even though Tillman Fertitta, who owns the Rockets, has expressed interest. So from that perspective, I think that, and by the way, there's always Quebec City, right?
Yeah.
But that's never going to happen. So there's always going to be discussion, but I think we're at least 6 or 7, if not longer, years away from any real fruitful discussion about expansion.
So why, John, in God's name, would they reconsider Atlanta for a third time and not Quebec City for a second time?
Well, market size for one thing.
Yeah.
Quebec City as a city, and I know when I say this, I'm going to get 100 tweets from the province, is under 500,000 people. Atlanta is one of the top 8 markets in North America at over 4 million. The reason why the Flames and then the Thrashers failed was location. If you go to the northern suburbs in Atlanta, you are going to go into very rich, qualified areas that have a lot of interest in sports. It's exactly what the Braves did. They moved out of downtown and went to the suburbs, and that's what's probably going to happen if expansion does occur in Atlanta, 5, 6, 7 years from now.
Yeah. The reason I asked that question is I just don't think there's any comparison in terms of passion for the game.
But here's the issue, and Rick can tell you this. All you have to do is look at where the revenue streams come from on a local basis. You go to Rogers Arena and you can see the corporate dollars oozing out of every private box. Mm-hmm. You can see the sponsorship dollars. In Quebec City, I know there are great fans. They would sell the place out, but where would the corporate dollars come from? Other than the province of Quebec, the capital of the province, what big companies would be there to put millions of dollars in sponsorship back into a team? And the answer is that it's not very many. It's issue, guys, that we have all the time in towns like Winnipeg. Where are the corporate dollars? The fans are there, but where are the corporate dollars from? Where are they coming from in order to try to keep the team sustainable?
John, we learned the word popliteus this week in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Thanks to Kevin Woodley and Thatcher Demko. And that is what was causing a lot of the problems for Demko was popliteus. Are you surprised the Canucks are not giving a date as to when Demko will be back? I said today, it's basically essentially week to week, but they won't even announce week to week.
Well, I'm not any closer to it than you are, Rick. But what I would say is that I think if you just listen to the words that Thatcher gave in Penticton, is that he thought he was closer near the end of the playoffs than he was a month after the season ended.
Yeah.
And so, this is a really strange little injury. The knee and, all of the ligaments in and around the knee are tenuous at times. And I don't blame the team for not creating a deadline, because every guy in town would be hanging on the deadline.
Yeah.
You'd be hanging on the deadline. Donnie would, Sakaris and Price would be, Bent Kuzma would be, and God knows Drance would be.
Oh.
They'd be hanging on the date's coming. It's 4 days. And then what if it didn't work?
Yeah.
Then he's still in rehab. So I don't blame the team for not giving a date at this point.
Staying with goaltenders, the goalie market could shift really big in the next 12 months. You've got Jeremy Swayman, still not signed by Boston. He's an RFA. He's holding out a camp. You got Igor Shesterkin talking $12 million with the Rangers. Boy, this goalie market is going to get crazy here with these two guys.
Yeah, Shesterkin will sign.
Yeah.
They have a year. They can figure it out. The Swayman one's a fascinating one. And to me, the way Don Sweeney was so aggressive in his press conference to say, here's where we need to go. And for him to pick the December date, which is the date that they have to have him signed by to play this season. That really was, again, it goes back to dates, right? That was drawing a line in the sand for me. And that tells me how, stubborn the Bruins are going to be in this case for Swayman. And then what they've done is they've really bought themselves some time to see if Jonas Korpisalo can play well enough in front of that, behind that defense, to get the Bruins into a playoff spot. And then you're going to say, hey, Jeremy, maybe we don't need you as bad as we thought we did. Now, do we all think he's a great goaltender? Yeah, he's a great goaltender. But you guys both know there are salary caps in every city. There's a salary cap for the league. And then there's the way the Boston Bruins run things. Yeah. And the Boston Bruins have always been stubborn all the way back to, the days of Ray Bourque and Cam Neely.
Yep.
And guess who's running the hockey team now? Cam Neely. So from that perspective, I just think that, the Boston Bruins are playing the Bruins game, and that in many ways is a long game, or at least until the first week in December.
John Tortorella invites Guy Gaudreau to Flyers practice. What does that say about Torts, no matter what some people think of him?
Okay, so I have a bias. I've always thought the world of John Tortorella. We have some mutual friends that talk glowingly about him. I will tell you, if the last 10 or 12 meetings I've had with John Tortorella, we might have talked hockey once. This guy is one of the special human beings in and around the game. A lover of animals. My favorite story about him, when he was in Columbus, the SPCA phoned him and said, would you please help us look after 2 horses that are on their deathbed at your ranch north of Columbus? He took them in and rehabbed them, and next thing you know, the horses are healthy. He's just one of the most kind people in the history of the game. He's also one of the most competitive, which comes out in so many ways, and people in Vancouver have felt that probably more than anywhere else when you consider what he tried to do with Bob Hartley. But at the same time, I think that, misunderstood, but there is a true great heart in that man. And for him to cold call Guy Gaudreau and invite him, having never met him, is just one of the most awesome, heartwarming stories we can have in a very, very tragic situation.
And John says he's going to have Guy back whenever Guy wants. And
well,
that's
I know
therapeutic.
And one of the great things, one of the great links with the Gaudreau family is Guy Gaudreau learned the game of hockey from Howie Meeker.
Wow.
And so that tells you how closely knit this community of hockey is. He was in Potsdam, New York, and Guy would ride his bike and work as a counselor at Howie Meeker's hockey school in Potsdam all those years ago. And so the influence of a guy like Howie, who we all know and we all loved, the influence of Howie Meeker still exists today through Guy Gaudreau, through Johnny, and through Matt Gaudreau as well.
What a character, the late, great Howie Meeker. And Guy, for people, big stud, not just a great hockey player, but a great soccer player as well. There's a lot there, and good on Torts for inviting him.
Indeed. And you know what? It's one of those ones, I almost think it was better in Philadelphia than in Columbus. And that's not to criticize Columbus, because Columbus will probably, I'm sure, do something for the Gaudreaus. But the fact is, like the Philadelphia area, but the Philadelphia area is where Gaudreau made his impact for so many people in youth hockey.
Yeah.
You know, in South Jersey, Guy Gaudreau is a legend for helping kids learn the game. And that's just across the river. And so to me, that extension, that understanding, Philadelphia to South Jersey, to me, is just an amazing story. And guys like John Tortorella and Danny Briere and Keith Jones deserve a ton of credit for reaching out to the Gaudreau family.
You finished your round, or you're going out, John?
Oh, no. Look at my face. I mean, come on, listen.
It's
I just
2 o'clock there.
SPF 50.
Yeah.
It's 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
I was 42-42. Not bad for an old man.
Wow. Do you give lessons?
We could both use them.
You mean when you come to Toronto?
Oh, yeah.
When you come to Toronto?
I'm coming. I'm coming in August.
Or do you take lessons after breakfast? Are you sure? Because you only do breakfast. I know you only do breakfast.
I only do breakfast. That is true.
Once he gets finished with Reed Mitchell and Elliot Friedman and 40 other people, he'll golf with you.
I'll call you. I'll call you.
Yeah, right. Checks in the mail.
Thanks for this, John. Next week.
Cheers.